So let's set our motivation to do whatever we possibly can to attain the peerless state of enlightenment through perfecting all the trainings on the Bodhisattva path, knowing that in order to perfect those trainings I need to have a good understanding of them, and that's based on an unmistaken presentation. And so it is I am here this morning to listen to a brief explanation on the outlines of the great treatise of the stages of the path to enlightenment. The Ganden Tripa. So the Ganden Tripa has passed away on the 21st, and again I would like to offer some Mani Padme Hum mantras. And that his rebirth, his Yangtze, his rebirth may quickly come, and then again, of course, meet with the Dharma and be able to fulfill the holy wishes of His Holiness and so on. And that in order for all this to be fulfilled without obstacle, we offer these mantras. And indeed, including within our aspiration and our motivation, all sentient beings who have recently passed, that they, wherever they are reborn, may they be freed from the suffering of the six realms, take a precious human rebirth, meet with the teachers, meet with a qualified Mahayana teacher like His Holiness, etc. as well. And indeed that and also for the sake of peace and tranquility in the world, not just in places like Syria where there's a tremendous conflict, or indeed also praying for the situation in North Korea where the leader who has a responsibility for his people, that he'll bring about a change or transformation in his whole mental attitude.
Gewadi, Nudo, Teres, want to do the Toachijam, the Salanko, so Diataka, the Paraka, the Parasonga, Diataka, the Paraka, the Parasonga, the Diataka, the Paraka, the Diataka, the Paraka, the Parasonga, the Budi, so Diataka, the Paraka, the Parasonga, the Budi, Diataka, the Parasonga, the Bodi, so.
Chokran di gatang and chuk to red nigan. Nibade. Niba ne kansa kangi kangla. Tela nikwa chawa kambani.
Ta niba kansa kangi kangla mikwa chawa. Teba nisa. Dirbe.
Dire.
Teba nisa doja shechewe mitubacha. Shedan shechewe jambacha. Demo shechewe. Tente. Ngaje shechewe kangi rabye. 남도 shechewe 우중. 그래서 너무 추연네. 대다 레서 강 가와시라 미버차 오지. 어디서 미베 남한테 송구도 하고 있지.
And so we had stopped at and will begin at the subheading, who should meditate on which objects? And that here it just lists the kinds of objects suitable for the particular being and what's more suitable for them to meditate on or to use as their object of meditation. And so, for example, where somebody is very dominated by attachment and desire, they say they should meditate on the ugly, that which is unpleasant or ugly. For those who have a great deal of anger, hatred, should meditate on love. For those whose mind is dominated by ignorance, they should meditate on dependent arising. For those whose minds are dominated by pride, and they should meditate on the differentiation of constituents. And that for those who have many mental proliferations, should meditate on the coming going of the breath. And so it says, if one's behavior is more balanced and that the mental afflictions are not so prevalent in the mind, and then one can choose whichever object of meditation one likes.
Deve dewa dumbo jigo mido dume ani ji mutu ni yongaya da rangi nyomo semma duwa tele tano yongu duwa dan tere yinba yinsa ani kapdo kapda ka doja shuk che wala ani midu ba komye ani shedan che che wala jamba koye da kapdo ki ani teke di niba shuk chung da tangayi kita doda redo wata kanji gechi yude sem duye che dodo sem nyomo be shen wata ma tangayi che do che redo wata tere
So again, whilst engaging in meditative concentration like this, one does not lose sight of the fundamental reasons why one is doing what one is doing, and that is to attain happiness and to avoid suffering. And so therefore, what meditative processes, the basis of meditative process is also the same. That this is establishing and creating a means or method for the establishment of happiness and the eradication of suffering. And of course, central to that, to the continuity of peace and happiness in one's mind, is the absence of mental affliction. And so here we have a specific focus on reducing the power of the influence of specific mental afflictions and replacing them with their antidote minds. And so here, again, to keep in mind, the main purpose is this pacifying of the mind, is controlling of the mind, and central to that is reducing the influence of mental affliction.
당부 rakpa digete nyomo rakpa digete ma ka ma to na ani chamu ka to khoro yo marwa 당부 nyomo rakpa digete pa rakpa digete ka gar ganzam ji on de to to na ani tele chada da je to da de ma shi za ta do de de kan ka yong sa de ka wa to da ji mari bolo to so ani da me to be shi ko chang do what
And so here also the process by which one engages in this reduction of mental afflictions is dealt with by taking on those mental afflictions which are most prevalent in the mind, or the coarser characteristics of mental affliction. So that's dealt with first. That must be the case, because one cannot deal with the more subtle emanations of those mental afflictions before one has dealt with the more coarse emanations of them. So you deal with the more harsh aspects of the mental affliction first, then you when you have that under control, when your mind is controlling that, then you can focus on more subtle aspects of desire, anger, etc., to be able to bring them under control. Of course, to ultimately eradicate from the root, one must cultivate the wisdom of selflessness, of really identifying the key root of the afflictive emotions being the ignorance of self-grasping.
다다데 지금 미두버 고메다 아니 가서데 다 잡아 고메다 디가 망체 아니 가서데 가서 땡데 고메다 아니 감그라베고 디가 망체 제고메도 와 삼로다 제곰체네
And you can see also here that just by the subject matter itself, ignorance, love, dependent arising, the differentiation of constituents, etc. These the subject matter here falls under primarily analytical meditation.
Sumba migbe namda demani sa tilwa sumba migbe namda demani kala semsumbe asa semsumbe shi tenge zinje migde ngarshebe migbe namje sa sunye namba lola nawa di isa mingi namda ke sunye ta tenge zinge tsamaso ke nyasale sungsu wacha.
And so then the next headline are the synonyms of the object of meditation. So that the the images or the kind of mental appearances that come to the mind are referred to as the points upon which the attention is kept, or the meditative basis for concentration. These terms are found in Asanga's Shravaka levels text.
Niba kausu bebe bigo ngoswa tinesa ngoswa nesa kondo kansa je kala migwa jawa teba tatang shenya deshin shebe kula minne at tenesa tuba so.
And so then the next outline is identifying objects of meditation for this context. And so here, following on from who should meditate on what object, here it's referred to as that according to the text one should establish meditative concentration by focusing on the object of the Tathagata, or statue of the Buddha. And then the next outline, this is on your outlines, chapter 3, focusing your mind. Outline 2, how to focus your mind on the object of meditation, and its subheadings are the flawless method, eliminating flawed methods, and the length of sessions.
튠제체 대마고자 다다고 게메베 루샤와 네서 두바체베 땡에즈네 개발 이다 대마시 인테샤 대다 셈 신도 세베 세제 나다 대마차 미발라 세지도 네베 미도베 네차다 대마테스보다 개발 이다 대마차 다 대야서 미발라 균전도 대마시 괴베서 대라네 자베 미발 간임바 대라 예와 미제베 탑시다 영만이 지다와 신 셰바니 고여베서 어느 점바탕다 시신스게 자라치 고도 숨도 어디죠 점바데 시신게 되고 소스.
So with regard to the first of these subheadings, a flawless method. So here it's describing that the concentration that you will accomplish should have two particular features. And one is that it has an intense mental clarity, which is kind of a vivid intensity. And the other is that it is like a single pointed focus on the object with non-discursive stability. And it's also in terms of being able to continuously focus on the object, that kind of single, that's how we say, original focus needs to be one where one has the means of avoiding distraction, and then also a means of being able to accurately ascertain or become aware of whether one is distracted or in the course of being distracted. And these two minds or mental factors are referred to as mindfulness and vigilance. So that's a simple fixation on the object is insufficient for the development of this meditative concentration, as referred to here, meditative serenity. One, that focus and that fixation must have a measure of intensity, and that intensity also must be sustained so that one's focus has a continuity to it.
니바 유겐치 와다 데네치네 아니 셈 초저 다 당보데도 강에 용거래 강에 용거 고셈 고마메 인사 아니 남시다 고마도 아니 지금 장수고 대투했지.
And so first of all, one needs the kind of more basic quality of a mind that can remain on the object without distraction, and to have the basic ascertainment of being able to ascertain whether or not one's mind is distracted or not. And that is basic mindfulness. But then there is a background a kind of mind which is also checking on the degree to which the mind is in danger of a distraction or is becoming distracted. And that is the mind of vigilance. And so one needs both of these factors in order to develop successful meditative concentration. And that, of course, this is going to be difficult at the outset, and one will encounter many problems. But that's simply due to a lack of habituation. And with habituation, one will find at one time that this process will occur and be applied naturally, automatically.
로 코랑 로직 인더 스타일도 검시 매버서 디강에 제대로 요봐 다디 검시지 자어나 아니 간자스나 가세 매버지 그래서 로는 니버디 요봐 다 로는 니버 요르데 이는 아주 배주 마다와 임바 인사 아니 디 제대로 요봐와 다고 배주 땅땅땅땅 아니 랑수기 아니 니버디 용티 그러다 그러면 먼저 이나도 모자디 교정부 마당수나 아니 모자디 스타트 제 강에 제대로 와 그 양생은 스타트 제 지긴데 모자디 스타트 제 되고도 와 엔진 스타트 제 정서 나도 잡아도 들어或者잡아도 와 모자 니마만 뭐 마당이나 땅에 강에 제대로 와 이거 다들 거기 가서 저 다다도 로드로 제 검니 검서도 간사서 로코란 니바디 요래 니바 요래 이나 아주 배주 마당 이마 인사 배주 마당 왔다 배주 땅만이 와서 차버렸다 다 뒤도 당부 거주도 강에 요봐 다 강에 요대 땅땅땅땅 아니 그 로이 니바디 야 개원전 그 레라달라달라다 저저 간사는 가서 나와 용되지
So this whole concept of focusing, a single attention onto a single object is actually quite foreign to us. We certainly don't have a regular habit of doing that. And therefore, at the beginning, of course, it's going to not just appear strange, but it will produce many difficulties and frustrations for us. And so it's very, very important, though, that we understand that the mind has the potential to be able to do this, and it's simply a matter of habituation, and that the reason why it's difficult, that it's quite difficult for us now, is that we simply haven't used the mind in this way, and that therefore it is not easy for it to kind of enter into this sort of behavior automatically. And it's akin to a car that's been sitting without being used for a long time, and that when you come to start it, it is difficulty starting, and it's kind of gone cold, kind of like hasn't been used regularly, so therefore it's very difficult to get it started. And similarly with our mind in the job of focusing on a single object, it hasn't been started. It needs to be more accustomed to doing that, to gain that habituation. And that it's like with habituation, everything becomes easier. And in particular here, the problems that we found so difficult and intractable at the beginning will at some stage be completely nullified, and we would be able to generate the single pointed concentration automatically.
Our mind battery recharge need without recharge. 어때도 다 간제제 들 검시지잖아. 뭐저 쉐바 찍을 다에 검시지 이제 저기 일 지다 저 검자고요나 매나. 저 쉐바 찍을 저 다에 검시지. 말아서 뒤주는 저 검 아투 다에 개체뭐 임버다. 그 들고 저 콜라 저 냠용을 쌓아요 봐. 냠용지 쌓아요 봐. 냠용 쌓아요. 안 하도도 안 받는 거죠. 쉐방 뭐 쳐야다. 아니 저 쉐바 세시 받은 거 쳐야 돼. 아니 쉐바 호랑이 때문에 다 지금 쉐바를 미네. 삼로 당전 쉐바를 미네 검대. 아니 쉐바 세시 받은 거 쳐고 냠용 되는 거 쳐고 그러면도 쉐 칸에 저 자외도 뭐 쳐야 돼 가버리도 와. 그 세시 봐. 그 쉐바 쓰는 숙제 많이 봐. 아니 지금 다 간제 지금 숙제 많이 받지 요래 뭐버래 숙제를 해면도 그러다 간제 다 되면 되제 말에 다들 이번 인자 다 시험을 쓰는데 아니 다 세시리바 코랑 대세지 다 세시리바 등에들 왔다 간제 용어가 있다네 아니 지 유리 당당 예당 된대지 때는 왔다 시험을 거 거치래도 다들 곧 삼목당네 시험 코랑 걸 미는 삼목당네 안데 아니 쉐바가 제레 민자와 뭐 시우주한테 그 아니 쉐바 코랑게 나는 아니 찍찍라 때네 아니 제레도 못 쳐고 저래도 제레 코랑 내가 냈다 쉐바 코랑 쉐바 코랑게 찍 내가 냈다 줘봐 shebe dese mintawa dikete namsha mintawa diko samlo tanje ane nyonghe ke tone ane oti tirisha nye gochire dwa.
So again, to talk about habituation and how central this is to being able to develop these skills and these skills. And so it's a question of really being able to live from or understand what's been spoken of through one's own experience. That this means really delving into gaining a thorough knowledge of actually mind itself, and this means like gaining an understanding of the defining characteristics of mind as being that which is clear and that which is awareness or knowing, and that recognizing where mind itself sits in the context of all objects or phenomena, that it is not matter, it is not a non-associated compositional factor, it is consciousness, and that it is an object, so it has, it kind of like adheres to the rules of what a functioning object is, that when we reflect on mind itself, that even though like one talks about it, it's not the clearest way of being able to understand it. The clearest way of understanding one's own mind is through one's own reflection on the mind, and so it's kind of very good for us to really gain that sort of experience of being able to ascertain what consciousness is, what the functions of that consciousness, what the attributes of it are, what are the different mental factors of mind, etc. And so that when something arises, then we can say, yes, that's what that is, or that's what this is, and so on. So we have this kind of really strong, competent working knowledge of our mind.
그래서 미발에 내봐 sammacha ngata teba wata tende ani di yongmo yongki di regido regimudo nechala negido tembuto takji je tembada sheshen tigete ko nyuba takta de tuyeche an ko lo komni yongku yesarwa yongku to wata sheta tende bita.
So this is specifically, of course, in the context of where one is using that focused aspect of the mind to focus on a single object in the context of cultivating meditative serenity. And here, like, we can use that knowledge of mind to examine to what extent one is sustaining the intensity of focus that is necessary to be able to maintain single-pointed focus on that object, and then checking to what degree we are actually focused on the object. Is there any deviation from that, and so on. This process of intense observation through one's knowledge of the functionality of mind.
다들 안 로직이 코랑코랑을 내가 들래잖아. 안 찍지 바제 맞지 맞지. 안 로디 아니 지 거서다 때문에다 뉴버테야는 편도 요거지. 당 알아도 먹음도 찍제가 줘도 찍 뉴버 흉처. 찍제가 줘도 찍 뉴버 흉처. 그 로그가 소래. 다 찍 새는 뭐좀 많이 와야지. 알아도 검시도 매번 인자. 로직 찍샤도 찍샤마도 소리 차네. 그 밸런스 딱딱 레마도가 저렇지.
So this like will reveal to us very much the kind of shortcomings of our own focus as well, because to be able to focus one kind of mind on a particular object is to also understand the kind of obstacles that can arise by trying to sustain both the intensity and the stability of that focus. And so here we will find that maybe by adjusting in one way, we kind of like gain one aspect of that focus, but by doing so we lose another. And So this is kind of like the instability or the fickleness of our habitual mind. And so here we need to be able to have more kind of a subtle application of antidotes to the obstacles, so that we maintain an equanimity, kind of balanced focus.
아니 곰니데 투에게 내가 시우종 되고요. 지원 다 지원 차다 저도 안 지원 참모데 안 곰게 나왔잖아. 다들 이 맞고 저거 로데 네버 맞아 롱하다 tempat. 로 네데게 아니 나를 매게 소리 저도 아니 그 지원이 내고요. 와. 지원이 내. 아니 지원이 뭐 뭐마도 전데 곰이 있잖아. 내 귀를 못 봐도 샤도
So, like for example, in terms of one of the main obstacles or to meditative concentration being laxity, here we need to be able to become aware as we are continuing and developing our meditation of the more and more subtle levels of laxity. And so, even at the most subtle level of laxity, it's very difficult to recognize that here, like we're trying to sustain a kind of an intensity to our focus. And when there's even a tiny dip in that intensity, it means that we are being affected by laxity. And so even though we may be able to continue meditating like that, it will ruin the kind of quality of that meditation. We won't be able to sustain a good quality meditation for long.
지와 뭐 사대겐데 아니 저기 문에잖아 검장에 검장에 셴에다 데려 줍대게 밑에 가서 많이 샵스로 다가자 저 밑에 저 가서도 저 중부당아 뒤에 다 뒤에 밑에 검장 차에 안 맞어도 밑 톰되게 소리지 가서 지와 뭐 사대도 레버 좀 매긴 차대 맞아 그러니까 저 검대 비다고 말이야지.
And so this is a situation where one maybe have already dealt with the obstacles related to the other main obstacle being excitement of mind, and so that here they have been dealt with. So one has that focus on the object, and it is reasonably intense, but there is a dip in the intensity. And this shows that there's the introduction of the problem of laxity. And so then it means that, however long we are going to meditate in that state, what is happening is there's a kind of an accumulation of the fault of laxity throughout every moment of that meditation. Even though from the outside, such a meditator may really look the part, look like they're completely still, looking very, very sharp, looking very, very focused. But actually what's happening is the kind of development or cultivation of a sort of a stupefaction. It tends to stupefy the mind when one is kind of like not dealing with those subtle levels of mental fixing or mental laxity.
Today was Jiwada, Jiwatamoda, Gom Nordic Pem, that is a double Jiwara Vatican Macabo, the Mama much and Jiwatamo to get the more trouble, and Jiwatamo to the kite catch much at it.
And so that it's just simply that, as it says, there are many, many difficulties, many faults and mistakes arise due to the mental laxity. And so it's very important to kind of be pre-armed and pre-warned of this before entering into meditation, so that one is first of all dealing with the coarse levels of laxity, and then being very vigilant to be able to recognize the more and more subtle levels of laxity as they arise.
강 never some masse and the 강 가서 세세 and dia ngata temba chi yume to la pechu chi ko to ta de de sebo da ngata temba ka se yube chuge and nature de puta ta to twitch bet puta ta ta e chi ka so de sem ka so de da ka je jam 다 뒤주도 야 거저 저 뭐죠 맞잖아 인외님가 제 여바 인사 다 되게 그가 지금 가서도 거서다 거발라 마셔와 지완라 마셔와 와다 된대 전에다 간제디 개쳐보지 전에 제바도 시신 그 자라 제전 다 된대 전에 다 죽고 저래도 와 저다 배나 지금 지완 리행고도나 지완 리그도나 지원 리그도나 스텝도스 방야 띵고츠베데 펑도스 tos다 야 고발 리그도나 야디 냠뇽 때네 야 마도 스텝도스 방마도 당진 다들 이제 증거니게 나 갑자기 짠 근데 전다가 이제 저거 다들 아니 내가 대가 다 간테 두도 균투네 대투에 지금 딱 지금 셈 내가 잡마자디 아니 배 지금 나한테 대봐 안티 가서 초통투에더라 진거 그 받지 마중 왔잖아 안 제바다 시신에 잘하잖아 놓고 저래도
And so really what one is looking for here is to generate quality experience and to then be able to rely on that quality experience when dealing with these particular obstacles to meditative concentration. So first of all is that yes, one is able to maintain one's focus on the object, but one is not simply satisfied with that. That's fine to have that single pointed focus, but there must be an element of clarity about that focus and a level of intensity with regard to being able to sustain that focus. And so here it's this conscientious attendance to quality meditation that will serve one best when it comes to being able to properly apply antidotes to both mental laxity and mental excitement when they inevitably come as obstacles. And so here it's that when, for example, there is a straightforward distraction from the object, that one is able to recognize the distraction and to bring the mind back, to be able to eradicate that distraction, but also to be able to recognize to what degree, if any, one's mind, one's focus has in the meantime slipped into either laxity or excitement on the basis of that distraction. And so it's kind of checking out to see if there is any influence of laxity and excitement. These two constantly is very, very important. And also to understand that as you gain more experience, you will gain more subtlety in the kind of application of how to repair. Say, if there's some mental laxity, so there's some sinking of one's attention, then one can raise that level of focus to eradicate that particular obstacle. Or if there is some excitement of the mind, then there's kind of like a calming or bringing down of the mind to maintain a kind of consistency of intensity of that focus.
판 레버도 데트나 미도와 샤바나 지외 중세자 매기 괴셰 지외 내자 균투와 니오와 토냐사 리베싱 자 매체 레버 디바야 르베 내자 유불게와 토네 타데네 당와체모 이노 냠도 레버 랍라 고바 랍체 계산도 못 줘버는 모사 다디 가서 다디 지와 참모도 넣어대고 요와 지와 되게 지와 참모도 넣어대 아니 다디 어디 컴퓨터 버렸어 왔다 되네 지금 다 개다잖아 나뭐 되네 용어 되게 도스 되네서 지와 개봤다 검 개봤니 마치베 담이 돼서 다 지와도 검이 야와 치마도 같이 끼어렸어 그래서 대다 땡에 진에서 규면에 나셔봐다 개바 니다 때마시고 그랬어.
And so the next outline is eliminating flawed methods. And so here in the outline, this is explained in with words from a text called Praise of Confession, where it says, one may have a mind which is kind of tightly stabilized without any discursiveness, but because of that, there will be a kind of an increase of mental excitement, and that means that focus cannot be prolonged, cannot be sustained. And so here the recommendation is that sort of elevated mind or elevated mind should be kind of like brought down. And so so the kind of a conclusion is that if one does, then with a very tight mind, if one relaxes that mind, then one will be able to quickly lead to some sort of stability. And so this is regarded in the kind of like what's that outline again? Faulty ways of eliminating flawed methods. So this is actually a flawed method, even though it's referred to in this text as a great instruction. And so in short, it's saying that good relaxation equals good meditation. And so this is a problem, because it shows that one has failed to differentiate between meditation and mental sinking. So this is exactly what Geshe-la was talking about just now, that here mental sinking has arisen, but one has failed to recognize that it is a mental sinking. One simply thinks that this is good meditation because there's no excitement in the mind, brought the mind down. So again, it goes back to that original provision where under the outline of presenting the flawless method, where it says you need to care for both mental excitement and mental sinking, and to be able to have the antidotes to oppose both of those obstacles.
So, 먼저 지금 검자사가라 kupsune 대두가 당 안에 지금 가서도 라베 차자다 되게 다 수분 내다데 다다 대두가 있네. 다 개치도 생긴 내다들도 와. 생긴 내다 다 생긴 샤다 되게 돼. 야고지 마종아 이바이나 그 첼롱아 야고지 마종 안에 소소 뒤주 돌아다는 거 소리 차도도. 안에 갈래 잡아 되다시라 매되는 소리지. 되다시라 다 개치슈도 거저 다보 미과지니 미땡예 받들라 미땡딜라 아니 저거 셈데 아니 다 되긴 라바네시 다 거저 저거 가서도 셈 네투바 잠말에 나다 때바 유케지 세자 유케 나다 때바 유케 다 데데지 용해라 배추치고도 다 가져 오다 디 용해다 다 숨겹지게들 아니 제바데 시시들도 와 제바데 시시라도 와다 디 맞잖아 지와 참모다 아니 곰 노르제나다 용티그레스 우도 어디다 데디 개치보제는 수고도 하디 개치보제는 때문에 뒤주 돌았다 되게 봐 어디 개치보제는 수고도 어디다
And so therefore again it brings us back to that point of having the correct meditative posture, with the hands in this position, the legs in this position, etc., and to kind of really have the spine straight and so on. These are all important, but far more important, far more essential is being able to fix the mind in its focus with the correct attitude. And so this means that one is really focused properly on one's object, has that necessary clarity and intensity of focus to begin with. So it's really that kind of high quality from the outset that needs to be set. And that's very, very important to establish this right at the beginning. Otherwise, we can be wasting our time and we can be engaging in pointless effort. So it's so important to be able to do that and to know that the objective of clarity and intensity with regard to the object is assisted by the mental factors of mindfulness and vigilance.
그래서 타마니에다 통교서로 차대는 초스케가 말아. 닥스 배주만 보다 미가 톰 대교수도 와. 보다 뒤소라 차는 처음보다 검자가.
So it's like maybe a result of a lot of meditation, people become like stupefied, as if they're on drugs and they're just kind of like just staring into space without any effectiveness.
그래서 검자배 미유들라 하는 것이 그래서 삼로 템보 아니 샵스그래. No, that is good.
And so that the basic qualities of one's meditation when focusing on an object should include this sharpness and this intensity, this clarity of sharpness and intensity. 다가는 다 가정이 많이 주의 받아 가자 지금 밑에에 배나 다 산제 구소를 잡이나 산제 구디 아니 지 강충충 다 중나 그렇지 그 제마 제시 내가 맞아 다 가자 되게 제치 대본 제치 다 체님 그것을 강충의 야가 요새 다 당보다 중화대 니과 샤도 도스강에 되게 이나야 로고바 중저도 엔젤라 지금 가서 밑에 먹고 제바이나 야 그现在这我等着主要了刚开始吃的了然后把这吃了我明天是来节目我就明天点不起那第二刚冲中就上么当多一呢安这个了身体呢多一呢安的身二七就都是还有事的明天开始冲了也有速度啊 And so as I mentioned in a previous session that choosing the body of a Buddha, the image of a Buddha as one's object of meditation is good. And at that time also I remember saying that we should try to focus on an object that is as small as possible in our mental when it arises in our in our minds. So as small as a seed if possible, if not then the size of a thumb. But the smaller the better. And even though this may be difficult at the beginning, and that in terms of but it is part of like one of the many difficulties of being able to cultivate mental serenity, but it will really benefit to being the aspect probably of intensity when one is keeping one's mind on that object. So the smaller the better, sense seems to facilitate a more intense focus.
보다 근데 검자사들은 지금 저 산제 구이 있는데 tan가이면 될 체중 개개와 요 말에 전부이는 내가 다 소속에 좀 밑보 동아에 줘 봐. 밑보 동아에도 중조 삼다. 야 검자에서 그 중조고 했게 잠깐 말 봐.
Yeah, so it's not actually the object that you have to find a really small statue of the Buddha or tanka, but that size doesn't matter, but it's what you're visualizing in your mind that it's very, very as small as possible. And that the object is consecrated and so on.
수바 튕기 쳇된 반에서 튕제 때마다 다 튕제는 예바 위에다 맺잖아. 될라서 다 벽이 집어서 라마고마타서 고마탐제 담보 마고메 링어서 튕초나 담모가 잡고 송스거들다. 지금 다시 셰지되려도 그다 가서 라마고마 속에다 간제 지금 가서도 담보 말아서 내 담보 거면 또 아니 튕 통동은 지금 다 유행보 많이 봐. 튕 통동은 지금 강 뿌다다. 뿌다보잖아. 아니 지금 가서 장망아. 장다 강망마 스테토나 야 그랬어.
And then with regard to the length of sessions, that other outline, and that here, it's saying that there's nothing kind of definite about the length of sessions, but according to the lamas of various Tibetan lineages, they all recommend that one should start as a beginner with shorter sessions, but have many of them. So it's really kind of saying, quality over quantity, but to repeat that quality over many, more than your average number of sessions.
And because you to know the Kebaja user, but tune Jama there and Donna Yoich, Kana Yoetachi. That in La Million, the good with the Kansas did Jama Denima to Nobo.
So also it's saying that the other obvious benefit of a short session is that when you finish a short session, you'll still have enthusiasm for the next session. Whereas if you're at the end of a long session, you might be quite frustrated and have no kind of like encouragement to go into another session afterwards.
And the any people about the Namda with the letter, Yanjig, the Degi, and the Comta, the paying quarter with the chickens, but some of the chair, and the issue like Comchima, the Yagoy, Society Janchieta, the Kajaji Casule, Jama the Pita Buyo Echeto, and chicken. Tell me the order because of the breaks, the break stations, the break station is a Yanjig because of the 묘목계가 삼로만 거 땅와이나 튀지마도 뇌되기로 와.
So again, to deal with also the time between sessions is something that should not be ignored, but actually one should really take great care of that in-between time, because it has a great bearing on the subsequent session. And that so therefore one should really use that time between sessions to really facilitate the quality of your next sessions. And that means maybe reading the biographies of holy beings, reading texts that enumerate the benefits of meditative concentration, or engaging in activities of accumulation of merit and purification of negativities. And so one can engage in any kind of activity like this, but one should avoid just simply relaxing. This is my break between sessions. And you're letting the mind go lax, and therefore opening the door to having thoughts of mental affliction. And that's what will compromise your subsequent session. So one has to be very careful in that regard. So what you have to really, the objective of a between session period is to engage in an activity that will benefit your next session.
And the nga kewa sangbo yin, nga sunam chimbo yin, nga guga yabu shiu chungso wa tate sosu guga ta yabu reerwa, ta yimba de ngotru ya che de ke chimbo rwa.
And so to continuously remind oneself too just how fortunate one is, what an extraordinary opportunity this is to have this amazing facility to be able to meditate in this way. And even though, of course, that's obvious, but it's very important for ourselves to remind ourselves, to recall that again and again for ourselves. So because if we don't remind ourselves of this on a regular basis, we are likely not to bring it to mind at all, and so it won't be a positive in our lives at all. And so it's kind of really important to bring to mind just how fortunate we are, what a great opportunity it is for us to live a meaningful life, and in so doing be able to actually fulfill that responsibility.
Same thing.
And so deep down in the mind also to have a store of real inspiration, of real stimulation of mind, of being really inspired to do what one is doing.
dimension ngarazo koa zingdela 동해 찌게질 찌 못이는 용태도 아니 디 깨제는 아니 sem마기 바체 강에 태대 아니 깨잡대 뭔가 용태도 와 용태도 와.
And so because, that we are, at the same time, we understand we are beings in cyclic existence who can have to face often suffering on top of suffering on top of suffering. And so that can become more dominant in the mind, and we can forget just how fortunate we are, how inspired we need to be.
내가 소소 저기 먼저 강에 가서 채워이네 강에 채워대 아니 지금 철을 주답지 강에 채워대 랑게 냠래를 배주 당도에 강에 채워대 랑게 디기 주도도에 강에 채워대 랑게 로종게 냠래지라 아니 지 깨도에 왔다 된데 진짜 아니 강에 채워대 가나요 정도 어디 강에 딜을 때네 나 로종게 냠래들이 하고 지주 중 삼삼삼 와.
And to become really skillful actually at being able to use the problems we encounter to enhance our practice, to take them onto the path, to transform them into causes for our future happiness, to be able to see them as conditions for our own mind training. And by doing so, we can really make a strong habit of taking delight in incidents like this. Say, that problem, I was able to actually really transform the whole energy of that problem into something that is really developing virtue for me, is really good for me. And so this is a very, very good mental attitude to cultivate.
디기 길로 조투에 라라 디기 중화대 마음과 디기 길로 조투에 정도도.
And so therefore, the problems that we encounter can be transformed into causes of happiness for us. The happiness that we encounter can equally be the cause for future happiness for ourselves.
다 디기 약고지 검식 온게 되네. 배주 땅도 와이나. 아니 대화 중에 디기 중에 And
so if we can develop that kind of habit to use the experiences of our life in that way, so that whatever, if it's happiness or suffering that arises for us, that we treat equally and transform equally into causes for happiness and future happiness. And that then is what's called a meaningful life. And so that means, like, wherever we are, wherever we find ourselves, wherever we live, it all becomes grist for the mill, where we can use everything that happens as our practice, as our mind training. Because there's no doubt about it, we are guaranteed to always meet problems and happiness wherever we are.
And obstacle was obstacle remove obstacle remove was a blessing obstacle remove 대화다 동행이가데 철주가 튕기는 배주 땅도는 다 obstacle 요마르다. 저 딜을 나가지 매야다. 야는 동해 연구로 와. 동해 모여로 저승이 열었다. 동해 중앙대 대외교를 배주 땅도나 아니 다간제야 대화된 것도 뒤주 돌아왔단 그래. 대화대 대외교를 배주 땅도 받죠나. 아니 먼저 obstacle 와.
And so this is something that can really supplement what how we normally deal with the obstacles of our life, by approaching a lama who we have faith in to say, oh, please bless me so that all the obstacles to my suffering and so on, our obstacles in my life are removed, and please give me your blessing. But actually, the best blessing we can give is the one we use ourselves, is that when we use our transformative mind to be able to deal with happiness and suffering and use them both in our practice, to transform them both into causes for happiness for ourselves, and that here to be able to deal with suffering and not allow that suffering to bring us down, to cause an obstacle, to be the obstacle that it often is, but actually to use our mind training to transform it, and therefore not to waste time on it. And similarly so, to be able to deal with happiness with the same attitude. That happiness, we can often waste our time in the kind of indulging in happiness as well, and so to see that as a that can be just as much an obstacle to our practice, and to be able to transform that happiness and see kind of its essenceless, and to be able to kind of use that as a cause for future happiness. And so if we can really become skilled in transforming experiences like this, then it's regardless of where we live, what country we live in, or who our friends are, it doesn't really matter, because if we have friends or enemies and they cause us problems, we still can transform that into happiness.
다 소바 민과 가서 미과라 대배 와도 지다 잡아라 니세 지다 잡아라 니세 다 증거 중에 두서 지다 잡아다 증거다 대배 두서 지다 잡고 오지.
And so the next major outline is what to do after you focus on an object of meditation. And this has two main outlines. What to do when laxity and excitement occur, and then what to do when laxity and excitement are absent. And the first of these, what to do when laxity and excitement occur. And this has two subheadings. The first is using the remedy for failing to recognize laxity and excitement. And the second is using the remedy for failing to try to eliminate them even when they are recognized. And so with regard to the first of these, using the remedy for failing to recognize laxity and excitement, it again has two subheadings. The first of these is the defining characteristics of laxity and excitement, and the second is the method for developing vigilance that recognizes laxity and excitement. And so the first of these then, the defining characteristics of laxity and excitement. It deals with excitement first. And so the defining characteristics of excitement is that it is a mind which is a derivative of attachment, which pursues pleasant objects and acts as an impediment to meditative serenity. And the second, the defining characteristics of mental laxity is that it is a mind's way of apprehending an object of meditation which is slack and does not apprehend with much vividness or firmness. And so even when the mind is clear, it's if the mind's way of apprehending is not highly vivid, laxity has set in.
다 니바 지연 가서 니바 증거 또베 시신 개베 탑되라 다 증거 또베 시신 개베 탑되라 증거 고아 요바 정도다 지와 된데질 고바 된데질 된데 고아 요바 대시 잡도 좀 말해서 와 고아 요바 잡게 미쇼지 고베체나 다고 라래를 깨두고 고고도 고베체나 안에 증거 중마중 지다와 셰베 시신 깨두고시 고그래서 고라 대개베 탑네 미과 미제베 제베 종로다 제바 때문에 안에 미과레 셴도 미 그것은 셴도 어서 처음이 졸라 잘하지 되게 제도 그게 셈셈바니 되고 그랬어.
And so then the second of these outlines the method for developing vigilance that recognizes laxity and excitement. And as here has been pointed out before, that just having a mere understanding of laxity and excitement isn't sufficient, that one must gain experience through habituation, through the actual practice itself. And so here this aspect or factor of vigilance is very, very important to recognize whether laxity or excitement has arisen, and then to be able to develop the means then of being able to sustain one's focus on the object without forgetting it as a result of that. So it's then from within mindfulness, one is checking whether or not the mind has scattered elsewhere or not. And so this kind of like two aspects or two mental factors of mindfulness and vigilance are necessary here. So it's kind of really gaining an understanding of the specific work that each aspect of the mind is responsible for, and being able to really refine those mental factors into being able to do that work efficiently. And so therefore to form initially the habit of the kind of meditative habit, and then as that the aspects of the tools really of one's mental of these mental factors, once one becomes aware of them, to be able to use them more and more skillfully based on the experience that we are gaining continuously. And so it's a case of then being able to apply them more and more subtly to oppose and overcome and eradicate more and more subtle obstacles to our concentration.
지금 제고 지다리도 이내 딩게로 건당하다 아니 그 증거의 용 모양 그 제시다 되게도 고고도 되도 고고도 하고 고고도 롭다 다 되게 시에 돈에 애랑은 용화라잖아 근데 용고도.
And so of course that the experience that one gains oneself is primary, but prior to that of course one must have an understanding of how to go about meditating in the first place, what excitement and laxity might appear like. So we need to be able to avail ourselves of those explanations that are given, and then to be able to see how our own experience corroborates those explanations.
Australia 미치래 그 Japanese 그 잡아래도 zen 출력 뭐도 또 이봐. 그래서 가서 초 자주 틀에 되기도 와. 오스트레일리아 미래. 코란데 Japanese 타버래도 젠 출룩.
Zen Chulu.
자바지. 너무 뭐 코란데 달러 숨시 쳐 신가 쳐서. 자주 티데 되기도. 코란 자바 젠 자바지는 로지 슈스 쳤어. 이네디 코조 검잡으면 대세 가야 라마 소스.
알레.
대세 가려고도 안 오늘도 검잡단 하고 그러면 도스. 근데 하고 이네다 그냥 코란을 기계 그래도 나고 하고 말로 이래야 야 코도 룩스 근데 나 미세. 오늘 저나다 검잡단다 지다 미버죠다 지구 중뭐 좀 되게 되다. 못되고도. 못돼. 아니 되네 검잡에 죽으러 와. 나 코란 검잡으려면 대세 가야 잡으면 도스. 그래서 근데 야 좋다 근데 내가 오늘 좀 당고 조삼 제고로 와. 조삼 저바체 아니 퇴배던데. 다사 아니 사배도 검잡으러 왔다. 아니 다 검대바다 친구 중만 되겠다. 라고마 지노에 돈에 막 이래 진짜 검잡는 영화. 다 영화 남는 사기라다. 로츠마 어다 대도 스마 많이 버때 지와라 공기 나와차 공기 검레든 노래니가 여러다 로츠마 맞지 제자는 양의 양도다 거기 뿌다다다다다다다 답시 제바이나 요구로 왔다 이제 그거도 냠노 되는 용거지 이래 되냐라 대세 되것도 고고도 이제 딱 근데 미션 코로나에 기계한테 딱딱지 맞투는 시신 말아 코로나 젠 코로나 룩수 미션 코로나 되게 대신 제도
Yeah, so again, as recalling some years ago, meeting with a Zen practitioner, a monk, who he says he had been meditating for some 20 years in that tradition, but he never had any explanation of meditation per se, and certainly not in the context of understanding issues like mental laxity and mental excitement and so on, and being able to apply antidotes to those minds. And so that was quite revealing for Geshe-la, but he was not aware of who his teacher is or how it's presented in the Zen tradition. It's just from the explanation of that one person, one monk. He's Australian. He's living here, and but it kind of feels necessary that if you're going to enter into meditation, that yes, you're going to get the kind of first-hand experiential understanding, of course, but certainly it sounds to me like prior to that you do need some teaching, you do need some explanation of what meditation is, what mental laxity, mental excitement are, what are the prospective obstacles that you're going to meet, and what are possible antidotes and so on, and then through your own experience, to be able to refine your skill really in developing that meditation. And you need to be able to base that explanation on the great texts, the foundational texts, and get your explanation from that. So you kind of need the wisdom that arises from learning, that aspect of the assimilation of data first. And so that then when to the extent that mental laxity or mental excitement arises or not is down to what one observes in one's practice, and how to deal with it is based on one's own gained experience. And so the next outline is using the remedy for failing to try to eliminate them even when they are recognized. And so here again that not using any antidote to eliminate mental laxity or excitement, even when they arise, we need to, in order to do that, we need to cultivate the intention called application or effort. And this again has two aspects to it. The first is intention and the way it stops laxity and excitement, and secondly the underlying causes of laxity and excitement. And so the intention and the way it stops laxity and excitement. So here, intention is described as the mental activity of applying the mind and having the function of drawing the mind towards virtue, non-virtue, or that object which is ethically neutral. And that is neutral, and then yes, and so then whatever arises in terms of mental laxity or excitement, the intention is that which applies the kind of a necessary antidote, I suppose, to the mind. And so, for example, here, when mental laxity is prevalent or arises, there is this excessive withdrawal inwards, and that so there's a kind of like a reduction in the way one or a slipping all in the way one's apprehends the object, and that and so here in order to be able to counteract that, intention directs the mind to more kind of a delightful things, such as beautiful image of a Buddha or sunlight even, and so. But once the mental sinking has been cleared away, then intention straight away tightens the mind again, directs the mind to tighten so that it is sustained in intensity. And so again with mental excitement, here it's by means of attachment to forms and sounds that mental excitement causes the mind to pursue those forms and sounds, and etc. Yeah, it's not just those, but any kind of like pleasant forms that the mind sort of like chases after them or pursues them through mental excitement. And so here one needs to counteract that with the intention of bringing kind of more disillusioning things to mind, and to kind of calm the mind down, and that here once that the mind is calmed down, then immediately one again settles the mind again more stably on one's object of focus. And so disillusioning things would include the suffering of cyclic existence and or death, impermanence in the form of death, etc. And so then once the mind has been sort of like retrieved from its distraction, it's being scattered through excitement, then one re-establishes that sort of calm stability, settling the mind again. So here it's really pointing to not just in terms of like when one is in meditation, one really works to stop the functioning, really, of the senses as much as possible. What one hears, what one sees, what one tastes, what one smells, and so on, and that one brings attention into the kind of like the realm of mental consciousness alone, and remains there. So it's kind of very important to really stop the functioning or the influence of the objects of the senses and the senses themselves. Because once one is distracted into an object of the senses, then one's focus is completely lost. And so of course one has a great deal of editing to do on one's mental consciousness as well. It's not just one's other senses, because the mind itself can be something that is completely distracted into the past and the future on a continuous basis. So you can, be looking like you're meditating for a long time, but you're anywhere but meditating. You're all over the world, kind of like engaging in all sorts of things inside your mind. So maybe John in his meditations is still in China, enjoying the food, keeping his net, and all the wonderful experiences there. So it's extremely important that whatever one's objects of focus, say the body of a Buddha, that's all one's focus is. One's completely single pointed as much as we can, focused on that object and that object only. And so that kind of that object arising in the mind is the object of the mind. That's what we should be focused on. That's what we should have our mindfulness and vigilance on. And to have and to be reminding ourselves it's not just a question of simple focus on that object, but also to have that level of clarity and intensity to that focus. and to kind of be kind of ready with these tools of employment of both mindfulness and vigilance to sustain the quality of that focus.
아니 지와 중고도 아니 쌤 약간 또 거바 중고도 아니 쌤 가서다 방마다 다 되게 됐다 다 되게 돼 아니 숙청부 중고도 아니 저 가서다 같이 지금 가서다 가서다 지금 거바 중고도 아니 저 가서다 고객님이 선물한테 되게 돼 용도 왔다 어떻게 고객님이 선물한테 지원이다 왔고 아니 야 로마마 자자도 야 미국이 간 봤음 샤야 아니 지와 중앙도 양 지금 산재 굴레 외세 토대에다 안지 가서도 다 샘팡 토도 줘야 답시 지고도 하다 저 가도소수 딱딱치 투예치 야 지금 매바자 생에 대도나 야 지와 중모 좀 제바디 맞지 야 뒤에 딱딱 쇠를 못 차투예치 제바 맞지 소리 딱 가자 야 가서도 야디 답시 제바나 샘이야 다다 맞대와 지고 봐 그 지와 매바 지고 일단 대대에 가라냐 아니 그냥 가서도다 샘팡 마다 토도 당하네 다다 되게 말와 보다 되게 딱딱 쇠를 뭐
농농농 덴보 gambar
농에 토네 쇠를 뭐 바샤투에치 그것도 주에 주에지 아 지고도 제와지 배주 대마다도 제투에치 지고도 제외서 양 디마제와자 샘랑에시 코라 샘니번 냐바 샤투에치
and so to not just be satisfied with a simple placement of one's attention on the object, but to have to always ensure that a quality of clarity and intensity to the object, to have an awareness, a very subtle awareness of any prevalence or entrance of mental laxity or excitement, to always have the tools of mindfulness and vigilance to counteract these particular faults, and to know what to do. Like, for example, when mental sinking or laxity arises, to bring to mind a very beautiful image of the Buddha, or sunlight, something to elevate the mind out of that lethargy, and to again once one that is done, to reaffirm the intensity and clarity of one's focus on the mental image. When mental excitement occurs, is to bring the mind down, to kind of earth the mind by thinking on the faults of cyclic existence and so on, to reflect on that briefly, and then when you have that sort of more the mind is kind of brought down or reduced in its excitement, and then to again re-establish the intensity and clarity and sort of equanimity of one's focus. And so likewise, when the meditation is going well, you have stability, you have clarity, you have intensity focused on the object. Then also don't look for mental sinking and mental excitement when it's not there, and so be careful not to over apply antidotes when it's not necessary. Leave well enough alone.
야 방마다 토다 땅마 이마이나 고미 교연지기로 와 와든저 니부 동마제니 샤샤 이나 코 점바데 셰신데 그 뒤이네 그 저게 가서 다 가서도 그 뒤이네 다 가서도 attention 젠데셔도 attention 젠데 이나야 그 지금 증거 연구 뭐도나 아니 니부 동마제 버잖아 그 증거 연구도나 카도데 니부 두제도 맞잖아 그 내가 데려와.
So yes, and so yeah. So when there is no mental laxity or excitement, and then don't. It's not necessary to apply any antidote, and so because that will cause a fault to one's concentration. So kind of it's like when things are going well, leave well enough alone, but always sustain the mindfulness and the vigilance, and they are kind of should be a permanent feature of any attention that we're trying to cultivate, and so that they are like standing guard over the quality of our meditation.
총받아 직바로 앞에는 수주 배는 총을 내가 지금 요만은 답변을 둘러 종사되는 집에는 미 말레바 이네 잘라 종면 되게 거 다 대출이 되어버렸다. 다 밀레바 있는 그 계절 예예 남자 땡그로 왔다.
So again, it's like a business person who's selling a kind of clothes. Like when there's nobody in the shop, they're just sitting down, relaxed. There's
no, their attention, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're just kind of sitting there, but attentive. But they only act when somebody comes in and they're showing them what their wares are, what this might suit you, and so on. Yeah. Can I help you? So something like that. They are kind of ready to help when necessary, but not helping when it's not necessary. So let's leave it there for today. So it's kind of good in a way that in the West there's a great interest in meditation, but then by the same token it's also then therefore more and more important that they have a good understanding of how to go about that now. Understanding of meditation. Very important. So we do our Lam Rim prayer. So from my two collections,
Vast the space that I have amassed from working with the effort of this practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds visitized blinded by ignorance.
Even if I have not reached this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all lives and history. May I find the best to complete the greater paths of the teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by my practice. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the points and paths that I have discerned them. May I hold Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion, in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or widespread have declined, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddhist deeds be nourished for a long time. By even this great path to enlightenment completed, due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their children. May all human and non-human beings who eliminate adversity and create conducive conditions for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path raised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may they always be assisted by the mighty ones. May oceans of prosperity spread everywhere.
Shall
You are
Avalokiteshvara, great treasure of compassion, no aim of true existence, and true master of flawless wisdom, as well as Vajrapani, destroyer of hordes of demons without exception. Sankapa, crown jewel of the sage of the land and snows, blessing Drapa at your feet and make requests.